Can spending 10 times as much on a piece of equipment really get you something that's 10 times better than its budget counterpart? The answer might surprise you. We're gonna cover exactly that when it comes to these two leg extension, leg curl combo machines. Let's go. What's up guys, Kyle with HypertroFit.com, the best place to design your home gym and develop your training program. If you're interested in home gym content, click the like and subscribe button below and you'll get plenty more videos just like this one. We're looking at two very different pieces of equipment today. The Titan Fitness leg extension leg curl that is selectorized and the rack mounted bells of steel leg extension standing leg curl. I've already done a video directly covering everything about the Titan piece, and if you want to check that out, I will link that above for you here. And the bells of steel piece is a much more budget friendly, albeit not very friendly in many other respects, piece of equipment. So we're looking at a vastly different price point here. Bells of Steel's rack attached leg extension leg curl coming in between $300 and $400, sometimes closer to $500 depending on which variant that you're getting. And the Titan leg extension leg curl coming in at $28.99 retail price as of the filming of this video. So again, we're going to expect two vastly different experiences based on that price point, and this video is going to show you whether or not that's actually true. So in terms of budget versus premium, there's always a balance to strike, especially in the home gym space. Most of us can't afford a bunch of different commercial pieces, much less have the space for it. And there also begs the question of, if I spend all this extra money, am I actually getting something more out of it? And in a lot of cases, there is benefit to spending more money, but up to a certain point. Now, the bells of steel piece is very much a budget piece. This is something where you need to have dedicated space on your rack, or it's going to be put on and taken off when you're using it. If you've never seen me use this before, it's because I barely have touched it in the years that I've owned it. So I bought this a few years back. I wanted to add a leg extension leg curl into my gym, and I didn't have the space for it. I didn't have the money for a dedicated machine. So this was the best option that I had. And I get it in, I put it on the rack, started trying to use it, and it is usable, but you very quickly realize that there are major limitations with this thing. The range of motion and the quality of the resistance curve for both the leg extension and the leg curl are very poor. And that's because the way that this is set up, and this isn't a knock on bells of steel, there are a bunch of other companies that do this exact same design, but with this rack mounted design, the weight being loaded on the weight horn on this lever arm doesn't actually hit any resistance until you're like 45 degrees up, which is half of the range of motion. Not to mention you're not getting any sort of loaded stretch at the bottom of this, which is one of the most important pieces for hypertrophy. So you end up doing kind of these overloaded partials, and if you put enough weight on there and you go for enough reps, then you can get a pump, so you can actually get a little bit something out of it, but it's nowhere near the leg extension quality that you would expect from a regular piece. Now, the Titan Fitness leg extension, on the other hand, is pretty much flawless in terms of how the exercise feels. You can lock into whatever position you need. You have the adjustability with the backrest and the leg roller, and obviously that nice selectorized pin to select your weight anywhere between 10 and 250 pounds, and you're ready to go. This is exactly what you would expect a leg extension to feel like, whereas the bells of steel leg extension is an approximation at best, and really not that great even in the best case scenario. When we flip them around, the standing leg curl on the bells of steel rack mount actually gets even worse in my opinion. So this is something that if I was barely using this machine to begin with, I was using it 95% of the time for the leg extension, because as soon as I tried the standing leg curls, they just kind of felt like trash. There's no real way to get them to feel good, in my opinion. Again, the leg roller combined with the lever arm is really showing its weaknesses here, because with the standing leg curl, you can't use a lot of weight. The carriage and weight of the leg roller is already kind of heavy, so adding additional resistance to it can be challenging. Getting your left leg inside the machine as you're trying to use your right leg, limit your range of motion. There's so many problems with it that I barely can even consider this to be an exercise that you can perform with it, but you technically can use it for that. The Titan Fitness version, on the other hand, is a great seated leg curl. The strength curve is not necessarily ideal because the strength curve is set up for the leg extension in that it gets easier as you get to the top. And in the leg curl, you would want it to get a little bit easier towards the bottom where you're weaker and can really maximize your strength at the top of the movement. Beyond that small hiccup, just because it's a combo machine, it feels amazing. You have an incredible stretch at the top. Again, you have all these different adjustment points to make sure that it is hitting your legs in the right spot and you're able to get that nice contraction at the bottom. And then obviously with the Selectorized piece of equipment, very easy to adjust your weights, perform drop sets, get in and out with other training partners or whatever else you may have going on. So the comparison for the leg curls is almost non-existent on the Bells of Steel side. So I would say if you're interested in this type of equipment at all, from an exercise standpoint, you can kind of get something out of the leg extension on the Bells of Steel, but I would not go into this expecting anything out of the leg curl side, whereas on the Titan Fitness piece, you are going to get exactly what you want out of both exercises. Now, I don't want to be completely unfair to the rack-mounted leg extension because I do know that some people actually really like it, and you can see that by some of the reviews. It's not personally for me, but I will say that you can improve the feeling a little bit by adding some band tension so that you have at least some resistance at the bottom. You're still not in an ideal setup here because that stretched position is where you're actually the strongest in this movement and where overloading is going to have the most effect on hypertrophy. And if you were to actually overload this machine to that point, especially with band tension, then you wouldn't actually be able to move it beyond that because the band is only going to make things harder as you lift it. So I did just want to throw this in here that you can set it up with band tension so you have at least something at the bottom and then really overload at the top. So you can get something out of the leg extensions here, and I did just want to be fair in that respect. So yeah, exercise-wise, there's no comparison between these two. The Titan piece is 10x, 100x the actual quality of the exercises. But that's not the whole story, especially at a home gym. So the next thing we have to look at is, okay, what about like footprint space setup? Obviously the Selectorized Titan piece is a standalone machine. It sits where it sits. It's very heavy. You're gonna set it up. You're probably never gonna move it. The rack mount machine, on the other hand, should give you a lot more flexibility in terms of I can take this on and off my rack. I can put this somewhere else. And that is true. But this is not actually a place where the Bells of Steel rack-mounted attachment excels because it is incredibly cumbersome. It's very heavy, hard to attach to the rack, and then when it's not on your rack, it just kind of has to sit on the floor. There's not really a good way to store this unless you have another upright that you can put this on out of the way, and in which case I would say just leave it set up on that upright. The ideal scenario would be if you have a open upright on your rack or some sort of setup in your gym where you can just set this up and leave it, because getting this thing on and off really sucks. There have been multiple times where I've almost crushed all of my fingers trying to figure out a place to hold on to this thing because you have so many different moving parts and it's so heavy. There really isn't a good way to get this thing on and off, and then using the detent pins to lock it in, it's kind of a nightmare. So you really are unfortunately taking one of the aspects of what should be good about this piece of equipment, being modular, being something you can just take on and off the rack, and it becomes just an additional negative, unfortunately. So we don't even have something in terms of portability and storage that makes this better. Technically, the footprint is going to be smaller if you put this thing on the floor, but barely. So you're really not losing much by having a dedicated piece of equipment. Now, that's not to say you have to choose between a $3,000 piece of equipment and a rack-mounted piece of equipment. There are plenty of other budget options in like the $600 to $1,200 range that are plate loaded for these types of machines. I've not personally used them, but I would imagine they are much better in terms of their setup. But just know that going into this, that even if you think like, okay, I can get away with it not being the perfect movement because it's convenient and I can take it on and off my rack, part of the reason why I never used this beyond the way the exercises felt is because getting it on and off the rack is quite literally the worst experience I've had with any type of rack mounted equipment, bar none. What do we think? Is there a case for spending 10 times the money on one piece versus another? In this case, absolutely, 100%. The Titan Selectorized leg curl leg extension machine is at least 10 times better and worth 10 times more than this rack mounted setup. This is, again, nothing against Bells of Steel. They're a great company. I'm actually an affiliate of Bells of Steel. I'm clearly not gonna be selling you any of these, nor do I care to, but just know that there are instances where going so budget as like the rack mounted leg extension leg curl is, none of it's worth it. You're really getting next to nothing for your money, even though it's cheap. So if that is your only option, you're better just getting a nicer barbell and just saving your money on that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything else you'd like me to look into or cover in the future, let me know in the comments. If you want help designing your home gym or developing your training program, get in contact with me at the links below, and I will catch you guys again in the next one.